If I want to define a constant, I'll just say const. Sorry, my bad. In case you want some sort of very limited variable, which is just limited not within the whole scope of the component, but within the curly bracket. Let's just say its scope would be very limited, and you want a it's for one or two instance. You can say let. Let is also one of the way to define temporary variable. And here, while defining variable, you won't be specifying any of the type, saying this is an integer, this is something, but the type of data that you assign to it would determine what kind of variable it is. Okay, so for example, I am saying where LV A equal to, for example, A. Now, in case you want to determine, okay, now what would be the type of this? So we can say type of LVA, and what it would return to you? It would return to you string, because there is a string data that you are assigning to this variable. In case you say where LA, or let's just say LV underscore B equal to 10. Now, if you just say type of LV underscore B, it would say integer. Okay, so depending on the kind of or the type of data that you are assigning to the variable would I can say initialize or define that type of variable into the system. Okay. Next thing is, this is something we can call it as a variable. In case we want to go with a constant, okay, we can say const. And let's just say I would say same thing, LV underscore C equal to, let's just say 10. But here, after doing this, I can also say LV underscore B equal to 11, and that would work. But as it's a constant, the moment you say LV underscore C equal to 11, it would throw an exception. Why? Because the type of variable over here is a constant. Okay. Now, one more important thing that was also very useful when it came to ABAP was internal table. We were using internal tables for in the ABAP. In Node.js, or let's just say if you think of any language mostly other than ABAP, they contain array. So we can have an array. That array would be something that would be used for storing multiple kind of data. We would be using this object view. I will be discussing this in detail, but just to make you understand what all component a Node.js is containing, I'll just giving you a brief of that for now. Okay, because it's very I can say tedious to just learn individual language out of the context and then jump onto the example. So we would be just giving a brief and then we would be jumping on to the practicals. The array. So when I say array, how I can define that? So for example, I am saying LA of X. I can say a square bracket open close. This that would define my array. In case I want to also give the value at the same time, I can say 10, 20, 30, and this would be an array which is containing these three components. Now, if I want to get the first component, unlike in internal table where everything starts with a 1, now as we all know from our college days, or let's just say from anywhere we might have learned array, that array always starts with a 0. So if I want to get 10, what I'll do is I'll just say L of 0, and that would give me a value of 10. So this is, I can call it as a array with elementary component. Why it's called elementary? Because it's just a single element, just a single element level data it is containing. In while writing our logic, we would also come up with something that is mostly use array, or I can say object array. Okay, when I say object array, what it would contain is I can say LA of object, which would say that I do have a record which is part of curly bracket. For example, let's just define one component for now, and here you are saying that it is containing a let's just say name, and the name of it is, let's just say Sumit. You are saying, let's just say age, and age you are saying, let's just say 99. or then it would be an integer. Okay, so likewise, if you see name you are specifying over here, you are specifying the age, but this is a string, this is a integer. So it internally it's not a single data type to which it is bind to. Okay, so it's a kind of collection of data type, and that is why it would be an object array. In case you want to read this out, you would say LA of 0, that would give you this object dot name, and it would give you Sumit. In case you want to update this as well, that Sumit updated, then this value would be updated over here. So that is, I mean, kind of how the variables and everything are defined. There are plenty more also on the way, but we would be learning as and when we go over them. Now, one more thing. So we learn that we do have a constant, we do have where, we do have let. Now, Node.js is built out of n number of modules, or I can say reusable packages. Okay, when I say Node.js is built out of n number of reusable packages, how I can find that? Where I can find those n number of reusable packages? I can say npm.js. So if you open this www.npm.js is a Node.js repository. It's the it's the ocean of all the Node.js library where you can actually find from. So for example, you want a library to generate an Excel file. You can search for Excel and you would find n number of libraries which are available just to generate an Excel file. There are plenty of them. You can determine which one is something that you would be um, using for the kind of requirement you do have. Okay. For all the SAP relevant library, mostly they are starting with at that SAP kind of thing. So for example, UX specification, CDS, and all the generator, everything. So mostly they are, I can say, SAP centric. So it means everything and anything which is built on a Node.js are a combination of package. Now, where actually I'm coming from, or let's just say what is the topic which I'm actually navigating to now. For you to perform any of the operation, you would need that library. Perfect. For example, what we were doing till now is we were trying to implement the service implementation for this handler. And what does it need? It would need a package called package.json does have at the rate SAP CDS. Now I want to use this. Okay. I have defined this library at the rate SAP CDS into the dependency of this project. It means it's available in my project. Where I can find that? That particular library is available in the node modules. All the node component, all the node modules, all the node packages would be part of node modules. Whatever dependency you define over here, they'll get all its baseline code from the npm.js to node module, and it would keep it over here locally so that your program runs efficiently. Right. So I want to use this at the rate CDS, whatever library it does contain. So will it make sense for me to create a local instance of it and use it? Okay. So if I want to just create an instance of it, what I can do is I can say constant I'll define for a CDS. So I am just giving the name of the variable. It can be anything. It can be anything. I'm just defining a name of a variable as a CDS. And when I want to use a component in my particular JS file, what I'll do is I'll just say require, like in C language. So C language is something that we used to learn the very first thing. So what we used to write over there is we used to write hash include and something in the bracket, let's just say stdio.h, the old school or college days, right? When I want to use the same thing in Java, I used to write import something java.io kind of thing. Same way, when it comes to a Node.js, it would need a require. Okay. So if you think from an ABAP perspective, definitely in ABAP, most of the things are kind of reusable. But still, many a time, if I want to use something which is not in my scope, I'll just say include, and your include with a top variable, or let's just say all the subroutines and everything you would be including in your program. It goes the same way. Just the syntax is different. Here we are saying it as a require. So I want to require what? I need in single inverted comma, I'll just say at the rate as. If you see, the moment you say require, it would give you the list of all the packages which are available. This list may not be full because this is just a auto completion program which is running in background. It may or may not detect all of them. But yeah, most of the time it would be correct. Now, one thing, if you see, the terminating character we are using over here is at the rate. Sorry, it is called semicolon, not my bad. In ABAP, we do have a dot. So this semicolon you are seeing over here, if I just remove this, it won't it won't give me an error because this is a Node.js, which is a JavaScript, a kind of a flavor of a JavaScript. And JavaScript is not strict till the time you don't specify use strict. The moment you say use strict, it would consider it as a strict, not over here, but while executing it, it would behave it as a strict. So it's up to you whether you want to go in a strict manner. All you should be ensuring is you are writing a right line of program. So in case you are missing minor thing, at least from a line termination perspective, semicolon and all, it won't throw you an error. Okay. Now, so just stop me at any point in time you feel you do have a question or you are not clear. Okay, because this is altogether new language. I was also having plenty of question when I started learning this, so it's obvious to have questions. That's not an issue. Now, let's just discuss something on the visibility part. Okay, visibility part says, for example, I do have I have specified require over here, right? It means I am talking of the at the rate CDS package, at the rate SAP CDS package. Same way, I would also like to go with some sort of modularization, saying if I am writing any sort of custom code logic for employees, I'll generate a separate JS file for that. In case of employee reuse, I'll also generate a separate file for that. Same goes for anything and everything. I want to go with a modularization. Now, whenever I'm going with a modularization, I'll just import that using the same kind of constant. I'll just say require, I'll just specify the name of the file and it would be reusable. But let's just say I do have 50 functions specified in my Node.js file. When I say require, it won't give you an instance. It won't allow you to use all of them. It would only allow you to use the component which are made global. So there are two component, or let's just say two kind of variable, two kind of component, local and a global. When I say local, for example, you do have generated a function called convert date to string, for example, and it is taking your date as an input, and it is having a string as your output. Okay, so that we would be specifying in return anyway. But now, while doing this, what you are identifying is this particular component is only required for my logic, which is saying update employee. This particular method, I want to call this update employee, would be calling this particular method call convert date to string, and here I am passing, for example, LV today's date. That's it. So this particular component is something that I can expect it would be having a call from remote. Some outside component would be calling this. So what I need to do this, I want to make this accessible from the world outside, but this is fine to be a local one, just to have some sort of privacy, just to have some sort of I can say security. So what I'll do is to make this public by default, everything and anything that you define over here is a local. No one would be able to see that. But if you want to make that public, you have to specify module.exports equal to. This module.exports is a word that would be used in case you want to make anything public. So either you specify it over here, or at end of the file, you can also specify module.exports equal to update employee. So what it would do is it would make this particular update employee method as a global one. So going forward, if you want to, if you do have an instance of, let's just say, employee handler.js file, and if you are willing to call that, it would allow you to call that. But this convert date is something that won't be usable. Okay. So now let's just get back over here. So here we are writing a implementation. Now that implementation should be visible to the world outside, right? If my component is only visible to me internally, it won't be usable. So what I'll do is I'll just say module dot exports equal to, and here I have to write a CDS service implementation. This is something which is a wrapper for all your service, and you are getting the instance of the service in SRV. So all of your implementation file would contain a code like this, simple one. Now this would become a wrapper. This is visible from the world outside. And in case you want to write any of the logic, you would be writing it over here. So for example, I want to write a before handler or after or anything, you would be doing that. Okay. So I'll just take a pause over here. Are we all with me till now?
Sumit?
Yes, Irisha.
Yeah, so if at all I'm using the backend SRVs, directly can write the name of the SRV or how I need to
Backend SRV. What do you mean by backend SRV?
means S4 HANA SRV, we have created some CDS
Okay.
CDS.
So in case you have created a backend service, ERP service or S/4HANA service that you are talking about, in that case, you have to create a destination of that. One way is that you have to define a destination, you have to define it in the dependency. I am saying how you can make this particular component of your CAP project that you are generating public. In case you want to use that, there are two ways. Either you have to first, once your service is generated, define a destination of that. That destination you have to define in dependency in the MTF YML and in the require section of Node.js, and then you would be able to use it. In case you are not defining destination, you have to give the full URL and go with one more package of Node.js called Axios. So Axios is a package that is mainly used for calling all the HTTP clients. So all your REST APIs based call, in case you want to put a GET call or a POST call or anything, that can be done using Axios.
Okay, okay, fine.
Okay. So we would be going with our first implementation of third-party integration with the Azure. It's a integration of SAP with Microsoft. Mostly we are planning for today, but let's see if time permits today or let's just say tomorrow. But we would be having this integration that's on our agenda. So I guess by that you would be bit of clear how I can create something which is not in my world.
Okay, another one more thing, Sumit. For example, we have created a sub account of Singapore, right? So when we are doing the processing from the India, so the data, how it will be saved based on the Singapore timings, it will be saved the data. Otherwise, based on the India timings, it will be saved. When we are retrieving the data, right? So automatically it will convert and it will show the record, or we need to convert that information.
So in case you are going with standard handlers, in case you are going with the way we are using it till now, it would be automatically converted. But in case you are with going with a custom handlers, let's just say Node.js handlers and everything, you have to write your own logic because APIs are already in place, which is for standard handler, it is already converting based on the user time zone. But let's
Okay.
just say you are writing your logic, then you have to first determine the user time zone. Table would be always storing time zone in the UTC. So
Okay.
as it's global, you would have to get the UTC timing, convert into it into something which is user's current time zone, and then maybe pass it into the output.
Okay. Okay. Fine, Sumiti. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, so let's just say we are over here, and let's just say whether we do have a service working, because as it's a local client, many a time we also find that it may or may not work. Okay, what we were going till now is data model. In the data model, we do have this particular component, and now I want to let's say generate one more component, which is just a structure. Okay. So for example, I want to get some sort of saying CDS persistence skip. When I say skip, when I say skip, like when I don't say anything, it would generate a table that we all know. When I say exist, it would connect to the database artifact if they are available. When I say skip, it won't generate anything. So for example, I am saying entity over here, and I am saying employee local info. Okay. And here I am specifying a entity which is having a key as a, let's just say ID. And I'll just say string 36. And I'll just say name of the employee. Here I'll just specify it as a, let's just say string 255. And let's just say email ID. But this time I don't have anything which is connected to this. So I'll just say string. And here I am specifying, let's just say again 255. So I do have employee local info. As I created the entity, what I'll need is I need to expose this. I'll just go in my service and I'll just say entity employee local as select from. Okay. So I do have an employee local, which is connected to this entity, but this entity does not have anything internal. So in case I generate a test client for this HTTP client where I want to do the testing for this, I want to say, let's just say test.http. I want the get employee local details. So I'll just say get and this particular URL. For example, let's just open it in a browser. So there is a service. So I can say v2 employee transactional. And I'll just load the service metadata. So it is loading the service metadata for me. So I'm getting the OData v2 version service metadata over here. Now I want to get the local employee details. So what is the name of the entity? I should be able to find it from here. Employees, employee reuse, department, dashboard, and this is my employee local. Just close this, replace this with a employee local. Let's copy it from here. Just say get. What you are getting over here is okay. It says no malform DB credentials because that's what I mentioned. I mean, after some time, it would just stop the connection. So let's just connect first to the service, and then I guess maybe we would. So I'll just say I have to connect to this DB. So this particular component, which is, I mean, as it was running from a quite a long time, or let's just say we generated it, I guess last week. It's not still in the running mode. So it was employee trans over here. I'll just go back. I'll just disconnect this. Now let's just try to connect this. Okay, it should turn into a gray one. Then we can reconnect it. Yeah, I'll just connect. It is processing that. Yeah, this is the one. Now it would ask me for my email ID. Let's start deploying this in a while. Something is starting. Yeah, as it's connected to a synonym, mostly there is something that we have already observed, so that's not an issue. Let's just say CDS watch again. So the service is running. I'll just try to get this. Mhm. Okay, no worries. Let's just do one thing. As we all know, here in the JS file, I told we do have multiple components that we can work on. Now I want to do some sort of implementation for employee local. So actually I was expecting a different kind of error because it should say either no handler found or something. But as this particular project, okay, we do have multiple component over here. That's would be the let me just reconnect, try reconnecting it once. Okay, let's do one thing. This particular project is giving us some trouble. Okay. Okay, let's just be quickly generate one more file over here. Oh, sorry, my bad. This was not the one over here. Because they do have very limited connectivity, this particular with the local one. I mean, the trial account, that's the only reason it's giving us trouble. So for example, I am just saying btp.local. There's a namespace, and I'll just copy the name of the data model that we just created some time back. So we would be going with the same implementation, but let's just go with a separate project because it's trying to temper something. Okay, so we just generated CDS persistent skip, one employee info. Now I'm going with a, okay, so here I'll just say CDS. This is something we also did earlier. I can say employee service. Okay, now I want to say employee local as select from PL dot. We do have employee local info. We just did that. Okay, and one more thing, let's just pick quickly from here is let's just convert this to something that we want. It should be npm install because we want to install the node package. Okay, now we are can't read property on of undefined. What is it just doing? Okay, now let's just read this particular project. What we just did, employee local, the server data model we do have. We are over here. Let's just say we don't have anything for now. Now let's just go step by step.
MTA we need to add, right?
No, MTF file is not required till the time we don't want to go with the deployment.
Okay.
Yeah. So this server.js, maybe we missed something while. Let me just close the window. It's not on this, it's just because of some sort of file. Okay. It would install all the local dependencies first, whatever were required in the package.json. Okay. Okay, now let's just say type read can't read property on of undefined that is coming from CDS OData v2 proxy. That is what it is getting it from here. It is not getting it from here. Okay. So this proxy file, does it have some issue why it is not giving us over here? Should be same thing. this server.js, copy this from here. It's employee local. So in the standard package, it is figuring out something server.js and this particular proxy. Okay, what is the package version? Many a time what would also happen is, yeah, here it is 1.9.0, okay, and here it is, it just tried getting some sort of newer version 1.9.0. This is the one. Okay, did you observe what did just happen? So, so this is also one of the interesting thing. We had faced this in multiple projects. So, okay. So what is happening is in the package.json, if you see this could happen, and this is one of the drawback of many a time using multiple open source packages. So if you see this project we generated today, employee local, and here we tried installing this. So what ideally it would do is it would try to install the latest version of this. Okay, and by the time we spend 1 week in the last session when we installed this, it was going with a version 1.9.0 because this was the latest one. Okay, and in this session it is upgraded to 1.9.1, and here we do have some sort of discrepancy because while as a part of this package 1.9.1 that just got released has some sort of bug, has some issue, and that is why the release version 1.9.1 was giving us an error. If you observe it clearly, we what it was saying is the on in SI this particular package, the standard code had some issue. So we have a stable version. 1.9.0 was a stable version. We figured out because we were using it earlier in the earlier project that we created, and that's why I just I just changed the version over here. Now, if you just say arrow, it would say if it would try to get minimum this version, but if there is any version after that also, it would try to get that and it would fail. So what I did is I just removed that arrow 1.9.0 and I just say npm install. So it just checked the dependency, deleted the 1.9.1 version of that, instead got the 1.9.0 and reinstalled it over here. And hence we are able to run this particular package. So 1.9.1 version in this particular latest release has some sort of bug, and that is why it was failing. Does it make sense? Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
Sumit.
okay. So now let's just say I am creating one more file, or let's just say, yeah, we do have the service over here where we were over here in the service. Perfect. Now I want to do the implementation for this, but I don't have any sort of component which is already available, which is having the data for this. So I'm saying employee local this. Now if I just try to do the test client, I want to do some sort of testing for this. So I'll just say new file test.http. Okay, and here I want to load the metadata, for example. So I do have this v2 employee metadata. This is my service. I'll just say get. I'm able to get the data. I am able to at least get the metadata. I'll just copy this, which is saying employee local. I'll just replace it over here. is not getting any data over here, but we should ideally get an error. Let's see, we copied it with the, yeah, we copied it with the CDS persistent script. Okay, not an issue. Now, what we would do is I want some sort of custom handler also to be implemented over here. So I'll just say @IMPL. And here I'll just say in my current directory, I do have a file called, let's just say service impl.js, for example. And I want this file to be generated over here because that is something that we would need. Okay, now as we just did over in the last one, I'll just say require I would need @SAP CDS. And next we need to give some sort of service implementation. For example, I'm saying module.exports equal to CDS service. Now I want that whenever a call is made for this particular service, which service? Employee service, employee local. These entities, whenever it is getting triggered, it should execute my code instead. So for that, I can say add implementation for employee local. I'll just say SRV. Now, if you see, there are multiple events. Okay, so there are plenty ways. Either you can say directly on delete or something, but there are three standard handlers. One is okay on, before, and after. So when I say SRV on, so what it would do is it would say what all events you want to handle. So I'll just say I want to handle a read call. Get call in terms of a CDS is called a read. It's a kind of a CRUD queue. Same CRUD queue, whatever we say, create, read, update, delete, same thing. So whenever a read call is made on what entity target, what entity you want to make the handler for. So I'll just say employee local. At that particular point in time, I want to have my handler implemented. If you see, it says expected argument handler to be a function. So you have to specify what handler you want to specify for getting the actual data. So what I'll do is I'll just say one more handler file I'll need. So there are two ways. Either you can have any local function. You can define a local function over here. But as soon as your project starts growing, this file would be very congested. It would be very hard to interpret that. So what my preferred way of doing is I just say employee handler.js, for example. Okay, so I do have this employee handler.js, and this employee handler.js is responsible for this particular project. And here I'll just specify one more component which says module.exports. Why I'm doing the module.exports over here? Because I know I want to have some sort of component which is visible to the world outside as well. And here I can give the name. For example, I want to give get employee detail. And here I'll just say async function. Okay, let me just go step by step. I'll just say function, and I would specify one parameter. Now, why this parameter REQ is coming, that is something, let's just go with the standard documentation as well. But for example, or let's just say for now, consider I do have a method called get employee detail. This is something I want to use. How I can use that? For that, I would need employee detail, right? And this employee detail, if I want to use, as I mentioned, what you have to do over here, you have to go in the service implementation and you have to specify that constant you want to use EMP handler equal to require. What you would need now, I would need a file which is coming from my current directory. That's why I'm saying dot. And now you would be able to use anything and everything which is available in this particular file with a component module.export. So this get employee details should get triggered. And for that, I have to specify LOEMP handler this, and you are saying get employee detail. Now this particular employee detail would get triggered whenever you are calling the read, whenever you are triggering the read call. For example, I don't want to give anything, so I'll just say return empty. But at the same time, I'm also saying console.log custom handler triggered. I'll just say send. If you see, I just got a message called custom handler triggered. Okay, let's just stop this over here and do one more thing. Here we do have one more option called debug. Okay, and this is something that would be very helpful whenever you are writing any sort of code logic. So what I'll do is I'll just say employee handler. I'll just put a breakpoint. How I can put a breakpoint? You can go in any file where you want to put a breakpoint, put a cursor, and what is something that I want to execute. So you do have all the configuration which are there in the run. So same way I have to generate one more configuration for running this. And for me to generate a run configuration, there are two ways. Either you can have a run configuration without a HANA module or with a HANA module. Right? We did that earlier. So in case I want a run configuration with or without a HANA module, I'll just observe one of the file called package.json. So this package.json, which I do have over here, is for BTP btrans. And I do have one more file, which is for this particular project, package.json, employee local. We have added one more dependency earlier. You remember, in case I want to connect to my SAP HANA, what I will need? I would need one more dependency which says CDS, which says requires. Yes, it was DB and kind HANA. Yeah, it would require a DB of kind HANA. So I'll just go here. Okay, so now we do have a. Okay, why it is giving the error over script? Where yeah, now I guess it was a time lag. Now I want to generate a run configuration. How I can generate a run configuration? I'll just say plus over here, and I would choose the project where I want the run configuration to be mapped.